Dave, it's my pleasure, not only as an inductee in the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame, but also as a sports writer, to be able to sit down and chat with you. I've read and actually written a few things about you, but never had an opportunity to do this in person. So thanks for taking the time to do it. My first question is, before we get into your professional career, how the heck did you hit 25 home runs as a little leaguer and dunker?
Well, I was the same size then as I am right now. The only difference is I just grew wider.
25 home runs?
Yeah, that was a good experience, and that was my 12-year-old year when I played in the Dunker Little League. I guess maybe because I was just a bigger kid than everybody.
Who was your coach back then?
Back then, my Little League coach, I had originally started with Leo Bomano and the Bomanos. You know the Bomanos, and then after that, Abby Abada was my Little League coach.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, right here at this very ballpark, maybe a year later, you're playing in the County Great Belt League. And as a 13-year-old, this gentleman here to my right hit a ball out of the ballpark. Tell me about that experience.
Well, it was the Great Belt League All-Stars versus, I believe it was the Jamestown All-Stars. And it was probably the 7th inning of the game, and we were down, I think it was 4-2. And Dan Graham, I think his name was, from Jamestown, a right-handed pitcher. He gave me a nice fastball that I reversed over that jiffit sign or whatever it is out there, logistics or whatever. But yeah, that was a pretty big thrill.
Did you get the ball back?
Hell, they haven't found the ball yet.
Tell us about some of the folks who influenced you in those early years, formative years playing the game.
Well, probably one of the biggest influences was my brother Pete, because he kept after me. And then, of course, my brother Mike played in the Dodger organization for Tommy Lasorda in the minors. But my brother Pete made sure that I was playing almost every day, and always picked me out for batting practice. And Coach Strumler was another one that was important in my life. He never stopped screaming at me. But I would say those two people, plus my mom and dad. I was playing on 3 different teams, so I was playing almost every night. I was playing Beirut League Legion. I was playing in Buffalo and AAA. So I always had a clean uniform. Matter of fact, one day I started out in Chautauqua, came here to the stadium, played the game in Chautauqua, game here at the stadium, and at night I played in Dunkirk for the Legion team in Dunkirk. So, and I had clean uniforms all the time. So my mom and dad were pretty important.
So after graduating from high school, Dave was drafted in the 5th round by the Washington Senators in '69. And his minor league career was just awesome. You were there through '76, is that right?
I played for Texas. Well, it was the Washington Senators, and then we were sold to the Texas Rangers, and I was there through the '76 season, and then was traded over to Baltimore and played in Rochester for most of that season until I was called up when Rick Dempsey got hurt. But I started here in the NYP League, and all the teams that Randy mentioned, Auburn, Geneva. I played in Geneva, and I only played one game here in Jamestown. I played more games in Babe Ruth League in high school here at the stadium, which we love to come and play. They played in one game and struck out.
The minor league statistics you accumulated were unbelievable. I mean, all-star games, and I think you had a 29-game hitting streak. You batted almost 300. You hit home runs. Can you just kind of give me an overview of the seasons you had in the minors?
Well, I had some pretty good seasons in the minors. Like I said, I started out originally in Anderson, South Carolina, the Western Carolina League, until the NYP League opened up the first year. And then I think I hit 295 or something here in the NYP League. From there, I went back to Anderson the following year in the Western Carolina League. And the next year I was in Burlington, North Carolina. From Burlington, I ended up in Pittsburgh, Mass. for most of the year until catcher Bill Fahey got hurt in AAA and got called up to Spokane, Washington, and played out there from 73 until 70, the end of the 75 season, played in the Coast League. And then 76, our Texas Rangers organization moved to Sacramento, California. And I played there for the season. And you mentioned the 29-game hitting streak. Well, that was because of the sports writer that wrote an article on me that said the only blemish on this pitcher, this Freisleben, was a home run by 054 hitter.
What?
Put it, big headlines. And so I took it and posted it on my locker, and he walked in the locker room, and he said, "Who put that up there?" And they just said, "You better stay away from it." I went on a 29-game hitting streak after that.
So the sports writer motivated you.
Wow, that's a great story.
As a result of those successes, everybody, I think, who has followed your career knows what happened in '77 when you were called up to the Orioles. You were there for about a month, but there was one series in particular in which anybody who followed the Orioles, or for us in Chautauqua County, will never forget. Can you kind of go over, that whole that series against the Brewers?
Well, we were playing. It was a rainy night, and my brother Pete and his family had driven into town because they were going camping. And I had played the day before in the second game of the doubleheader, and we beat the Brewers 3-2. And then, so of course, my brother says to me, "Well, of course you're going to start tomorrow. You had 2 hits." And I said, "It doesn't work like that." So anyway, that night we were playing. It was kind of drizzly, and game went on. We got into the 8th inning, and they pinch hit for David Skaggs, who was catching the game. And so I went in about the bottom of the 8th inning, or top of the 8th inning, like that, and we stayed tied going into the 11th inning, and so we were pinch hit Brooks Robinson, and I was following him, and as I was getting ready to go to the plate after he had grounded out to Lenny Cicada, Rudy May says to me, "You know what we need, baby?" And I looked at him, I gave him a wink, and I said, "Yeah, I know what we need." And 3 pitches later, the game was over.
The batter now is Dave Criscione. Dave had a pretty good game yesterday with a couple of base hits. He had his first major league base hit. The pitch is down low for a ball. In the second game of the doubleheader, Criscione went 2 for 3. And the pitch is a high foul back up over the booth and out of play. 1 out and nobody on. Bottom of the 11th inning. Criscione against the right-hander Sam Hines. The big fella throws. Here's a fly ball. Well hit to left field. It's got a chance. It is going. Gone. Criscione wins the game for the Orioles with his first major league home run. The dugout empty. Everybody's on their feet. And the Birds, the no-name gang, have done it again. Believe me when I tell you, happiness is a name called Dave Criscione. Oh, you couldn't believe the way this youngster is behaving on his way to the dugout. And then he turns to face the crowd and says, "Thank you, LeMahieu jumped up and down, ran in place. He hit his first Major League home run into the seats in the left field corner, and the Orioles have beaten the Milwaukee Brewers by a score of 4-3. Some members of the Oriole bullpen crew have gone over and gotten the baseball from the spectators who caught it over there and given them an exchange of baseballs. They would have given them 2 for 1 if it was necessary. But Vince, what an ending to a ball game. That's it. In 11 innings, the Orioles beat Milwaukee 4-3. Vince will be back with a recap for you in just one moment.
Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame website are a number of pictures from that game, and there's one of him rounding third base, and the gentleman is congratulating him is a gentleman by the name in the third base coaching box. His name is
Cal Ripken Sr. Yeah, he was our third base coach. God rest his soul. But that was a thrill in itself, just to be shaking hands with somebody coming around the bases and knowing that the game was over. Like I said, I shook hands with Cal Sr. and next thing I know, I got Jim Palmer and Pat Kelly and the whole team on the field. Ken Singleton, everybody's on the field, and of course I was acting like a little kid. I was jumping up and down. And the finer point of this was I was going down that night. They hadn't told me I was being sent down. And Weaver said to the general manager, because you tell him that he's going down. He just won the ball game and put us in first place. So I got to hang on for about 3 more weeks. We went to New York from there and I got to play in the old Yankee Stadium, and then we had our West Coast trip out to Seattle and Oakland and Anaheim. And then when I came back, that's when they told me I was going back to Rochester.
Who was your favorite teammate during that time with the Orioles?
I would have to say it was Mark Belanger, our shortstop at the time. He was really good to me. Matter of fact, he gave me his car to use while I was there. Matter of fact, another guy, Terry Crowley, he gave me his house because he was in Rochester. So everybody really treated me pretty well. I can't say that there was. All the players were good to me. So, matter of fact, when we went to New York to play Ross Grimsley and Mike Flanagan, Tippy Martinez. They were all there with their wives, and they took me with them. We went to the Empire State Building, and they just took me around. So, like I said, most guys were pretty good to me.
And you've been back to Camden Yards for some reunions over the years too, right?
I went back in, I believe it was 90 it was, when they closed Memorial Stadium. They had all of us come back, and the fans or anybody didn't know that we were there. They had us all sit up in the stands down the right field line, and then right before, probably about the 6th or 7th inning, we all went in, and they had our uniforms of our time when we played. So, guys, it was kind of funny because I said hello to Jim Palmer, and he didn't know who I was, but as soon as I put my uniform on, he goes, "Chris!" I said, "Well, you probably didn't recognize me. I didn't have any hair."
But time was growing short for Memorial Stadium. The grand ballpark, heralded as one of the finest in 1954, had become old and outdated. Fittingly, Mike Flanagan closed the door on the historic old home.
There you go. just one more time. And who better than a man who from 1966 through 1971 was responsible for more Orioles cleats pounding home plate than any other player. Yes, to touch home plate just one more time, ladies and gentlemen, number 20, Frank.
Dave Criscione, John Stapero, Stumpy from Glen Burnie, Don Ossie.
What was it like to play for Earl Weaver?
It was like playing for Coach Dumoulin. Really, it was, Weaver was a character. He liked to play for the home run. He played deep and hit the 3-run dinger. He was, I remember when I got called up and we were walking down the hall because I had to sign some papers. And he said to me, he said, "Well, kid, you never played in the big leagues before." And my answer was, well, they still play between the lines, don't they? And he just looked at me and laughed. He goes, well, he said, Dave Skaggs has been here and he's going to be doing most of the catching. And he said, you may get in the game in the later innings. So he was right.
How many trips have you made back to Camden Yards to see the Orioles play? Is that something you do fairly regularly?
I've only been back twice. I went back with my brother Pete 1 year, probably, I want to say 95 or 96 we went back, and then for my birthday in 2012 was the last time I was there. My daughter and I went, my daughter Casey and I went, and we saw a couple ball games there.
Well, I know one of the other pictures on your Hall of Fame website is you and Boog Powell. You must have got some food from his barbecue, right?
Yeah, my daughter had a T-shirt printed up with my picture on it, and so we went to Boog's stand and had one of his beef sandwiches. It was kind of big, and so I walked up and I talked to him a little bit, and he saw the picture, and my daughter goes, "Do you know who he is?" I said, "Do you know who he is?" and of course he said, "Well, yeah, I remember you. And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But you weren't here when I was here."
Last year, I'm going to end with this. Last summer, almost to the day, my son and I went to Camden Yards for a Yankee series with the Orioles. And while we were there, we went to Rick Dempsey's restaurant, which is in the warehouse at Camden Yards. And I took a photo of Memorial Stadium. And then what I didn't realize until just today when I went back and looked at that photo, there was a poem that accompanied it, written by Rick Dempsey. And I don't know, Dave, if you're familiar. Yes. And I thought I would read it just to close our interview here. Rick Dempsey was the guy that Dave replaced in 1977 because Rick was hurt. Rick ended up 6 years later being MVP of the 1983 World Series that the Orioles won. And upon reading this, I thought, or looking at this today online, I thought it would be appropriate to end with this poem that was written by Rick. Yes. It starts, "She's the lady in red, she's Baltimore's best, and many a great one have come from her nest. She gave birth to 1,000, adopted a few. By the way that she loved them, nobody knew. There was Brooksy and Frank, and Booger by name. There was Palmer, McNally, Paulie and Blade, Eddie and Flanny, and Tippy and Scott, Dauber and Cuellar, Stanhouse and Stodd. There was Moby and Cal, and Gary and Lowe, Richie and Singy, Gus and the Crow, the Dipper and Doug, another named Dale, and the last one to grace her, the Iron Man, Cal. She made Earl her general, R.I.P. Senior, the Sarge, and they led her children on a perilous charge. When the Orioles had ended on October's subside, there stood the lady in all of her pride. She's gray now and tired and goes to lay down with the pennants God gave her to wear as her crown. Glory and honor will sleep at her feet for the miracles she gave us on 33rd Street. Dave, it's been my honor to chat with you, and we're proud to have you as a Hall of Fame member. And I'm sure if Rick Dempsey were here, he would thank you for your contributions to the Orioles, too.
Very nice.
Thank you so much, Scott. Great interview. David, thank you for sharing the stories about your remarkable career. Really proud to see a guy from Dunkirk, New York make it all the way to the bigs. Quite an accomplishment. Thank you.